I never imagined that a simple cup of coffee would change the course of my life. I, who was used to the most luxurious restaurants in the city, ended up in a small roadside cafe on a rainy night, seeking refuge more than food. There, among the smell of freshly baked bread and the sound of the coffee machine's steam, I saw her for the first time, a young woman with the most sincere eyes I had ever seen. Her hands were stained with coffee, her hair tied up carelessly. Her apron was worn, but her smile had a light that money could never buy. She served me without knowing who I was, without caring about my last name or the millions I had in the bank. And in that simple gesture, I felt, for the first time, that someone saw me as a human being, not as a number. That night I went back to my mansion, but something inside me had changed. The loneliness of luxury weighed more than ever, and the image of that humble waitress stayed in my mind, haunting me through the empty halls and crystal silence. I didn't know if I would ever see her again, but fate has curious ways of uniting worlds that seem incompatible. What began as curiosity ended up becoming a life lesson, because she not only taught me what true love was, but also what it means to live with purpose. Today, looking back, I can say that what started in a forgotten cafe forever changed the meaning of my fortune. And if you asked me what made me stay, I'd answer without hesitation. It was her simple way of seeing life, and how that simplicity made me feel rich for the first time. When you get used to having everything, you forget what truly matters. That was my greatest lesson, and it came from someone who had nothing, or at least that's what it seemed. I was the kind of man who measured success by the zeros in his bank account and the empty applause in ballroom halls. But one night, stopping my car in front of a small cafe on the outskirts, I met Lucia. The way she moved, talked, and looked, it was so different from the superficial world I belonged to that I couldn't help but stay. She didn't know who I was. She didn't treat me with privilege or fear. She spoke to me as one speaks to a friend, naturally, with the confidence that only those with a pure heart possess. While she served me coffee, she told me she worked double shifts to care for her sick mother. She said it without complaint, with a serenity that disarmed me. That night I realized there was more greatness in her humility than in all my achievements. I returned to the cafe the following days, at first seeking her smile, but soon something deeper, purpose. Each conversation with her showed me what I had lost, the ability to feel without calculating, to love without fear. What I never imagined was that my past, the one I tried to leave behind, would come back to test everything Lucia had awakened in me. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and give this story a like if you believe true love still exists. Comment below what country or city you're watching from. That day, I arrived at the cafe without thinking too much. I had spent a long night in meetings, surrounded by people who smiled only when it benefited them. I needed silence, something real, something money couldn't buy. I parked my luxury car in front of that small place, glowing with warm lights and smelling of hope. Lucia was behind the counter, cleaning a table while humming a song. Her voice was soft, almost shy, but it had a vibration that touched something deep inside my chest. When she looked up and smiled, time seemed to stop for a moment. She didn't ask if I wanted the best coffee or offer expensive pastries. She just said, "It's cold, sir. Something hot would do you good." I ordered the first thing that came to mind, and she disappeared among the steam and metallic sounds of the machine. I watched her movements, precise, agile, used to hard work. There was tiredness in her eyes, but also a peace I didn't recognize. When she handed me the coffee, our hands brushed by accident. Her skin was warm, firm, no jewelry, no perfume, no makeup, just her. And without knowing why, I wanted to stay a little longer. We talked for a few minutes. I asked if she'd been working there long. She told me 2 years. The cafe belonged to an old friend of her father's, and she used what she earned to pay for her mother's medicine. "I don't complain," she said. "There are people who don't even have this." That phrase hit me harder than any million-dollar negotiation. I watched how she served others, laughed with an elderly woman, apologized to a child for running out of pastries. There was kindness in every gesture, and I couldn't remember what that looked like anymore. When I left, it had started raining again. I walked to my car feeling strange. For the first time in years, I wasn't in a hurry. I looked at my reflection in the window and barely recognized myself. "When did you become someone empty?" I whispered. That night I couldn't sleep. The echo of her voice, the smell of coffee, the way she looked at me without fear. It all haunted me like a melody that wouldn't fade. It was absurd. I, a man used to control, thinking about a waitress I barely knew. The next day I went back. I didn't know if she'd be there, but something pushed me to return. When I entered, Lucia recognized me instantly and smiled. "Back again, fancy-suited man." Yesterday's coffee was too good to forget. We both laughed. And in that laughter, the world felt lighter. I didn't know it yet, but that second meeting would be the beginning of something that would change my destiny forever. Sometimes, what money can't buy, the heart finds in a simple sip of coffee. I returned to the cafe in the following weeks, making up ridiculous excuses for my visits. Sometimes I said I'd lost internet at home, other times that I needed to think away from the noise. But the truth was simple. I needed to see her. Lucia had become my calm point in a world spinning too fast. She never asked who I was or where I came from. My clothes, watch, and car spoke for me, but she didn't seem to care. She treated everyone the same: the worker, the old man, the student, the lost millionaire. Her eyes made no distinction, and for someone like me, that was disarming. One afternoon, as the sun painted the sky orange, I dared to ask, "Lucia, haven't you ever dreamed of having more? Traveling, seeing the world?" She laughed softly. "Of course, but not all dreams are bought. Sometimes what I have is enough. I don't want to lose my peace chasing what I don't need." Her words hurt, because they were true. I had everything, yet no peace. I couldn't remember the last time I'd slept without thinking of contracts or betrayals. In her calm gaze, I saw a different kind of luxury, one you couldn't lock in a safe. I started telling her about my life, my company, my lonely childhood, how success had stolen my ability to trust. She listened silently, without judgment. She'd only say simple, meaningful things. "Money doesn't steal your soul, but it makes you forget it." That phrase stayed with me all week. During dinners with politicians and partners, I couldn't stop thinking about her. Her voice echoed softly among the fake laughs and empty toasts. I felt divided between two worlds, the one I'd always known and that small cafe that now felt like home. One night, my assistant noticed my distraction. "Sir, is something wrong? You've seemed distant." "Nothing important," I replied. But even I heard the lie in my voice. I started finding reasons to escape meetings and drive to the outskirts just to see her for 5 minutes, to hear her say, "Good afternoon, the usual," and yes, the usual, coffee, and the feeling of being alive again. But rumors spread quickly. In my circle, no one understood why a man like me spent hours in a humble cafe. Some partners whispered I'd lost my mind. Others mocked openly. That's when I realized how fragile my world was. Shiny on the outside, rotten within. Still, I kept seeing her. I couldn't help it. Something in me had awakened, and though I didn't know where it would lead, I knew one thing. Lucia didn't just make me happy. She made me better. One afternoon, while we were talking at the cafe, my phone wouldn't stop ringing. It was my business partner, Daniel. I hesitated but answered. His voice was tense. "We have a problem with the investment contract. If we don't fix it today, we'll lose millions." Lucia noticed my expression and smiled kindly. "That sounds important. Don't worry, I'll keep your coffee warm." I didn't know that would be the beginning of the end of my peace. Hours later, everything was chaos. Forged documents, betrayals, rumors. Daniel, my trusted partner, had used my name for illegal deals. Within days, my reputation and much of my empire began to crumble. The media filled with headlines: "Businessman accused of fraud," "The millionaire who cheated the state." None of it was true, but no one wanted my side. Suddenly, all those friends vanished. Only lawyers and silence remained. I didn't go to the cafe for a week. I didn't want Lucia to see me like that, broken, stained by the world's mistrust. But absence hurt more than scandal. One night, without thinking, I drove there. The place was almost empty. She was closing. When she saw me, she set the rag aside and said softly, "I thought you wouldn't come back. I was afraid you'd look at me differently. I don't look at headlines, I look at people." That broke me. No one had defended me like that without asking for proof. I told her everything, how Daniel betrayed me, how the press condemned me before hearing me. She listened silently, then said, "Sometimes losing everything is the only way to find yourself." In the following days, Lucia offered me a job at the cafe. At first, I thought she was joking, but she insisted. "I need help with deliveries. I can't pay you what you're used to, but I can offer peace." I accepted. Not out of need, but love. For the first time in my life, I wanted to work for something more than money. I learned to clean tables, make coffee, serve with a real smile. At first, people recognized me and whispered. But in time, they stopped seeing me as the fallen millionaire and started seeing me as part of the place. Lucia and I spent hours talking between laughs and silences. I discovered that love doesn't always arrive with fireworks. Sometimes it's built through small gestures, a well-made coffee, a shared look, a quiet word at the right time. But the shadows of the past never disappear completely. Daniel was still free, managing what he stole from me. And though my heart found light with Lucia, I knew I'd have to face it one day. Love can't bloom where debts to the past remain unpaid. That morning felt different. Not because of the weather, but because of me. I looked in the cafe's small bathroom mirror and saw something I didn't recognize. Serenity. I was no longer the arrogant businessman measuring his worth by power, but a simple man finding meaning in humble things. Still, my mind was restless. Every time I saw the news, Daniel's name appeared, living lavishly. He continued his life of luxury, hiding behind my ruined reputation. I couldn't allow it. Not anymore. That night, after closing, I told Lucia, "I need to fix things, not for revenge, for justice. I can't build a new life on the ruins of a lie." She looked sad but proud. "Do it. But don't lose what you found here. Don't let anger steal what love gave back." I decided to go to the authorities. I brought proof, recordings, everything to expose Daniel's betrayal. It was long, exhausting, full of threats and doubt. But while others saw a broken man, I felt reborn with every step toward truth. Lucia stood by me through every hearing. Sometimes she waited outside with a thermos of coffee and a tired smile. She didn't need words. Her presence reminded me who I was now. Months passed until the truth came out. Daniel was arrested, and for the first time in a long while, the news used my name beside the word innocent. But that victory didn't taste the same. There was no celebration, no toasts, only silence. The silence of someone who finally understands that peace is worth more than power. One rainy afternoon, I returned to the cafe, just like the first time. Lucia was serving tables, laughing with a little girl. I watched for a moment before entering. Everything had come full circle. When she saw me, she ran to me. I didn't say a word, just held her close. "It's over," I whispered. "No," she smiled. "It's just beginning." I sold part of my properties and opened a small business with her, a cafe with soul, where people could feel seen, heard, valued. It wasn't the empire I lost. It was something far greater. Every morning, we opened the doors together, she in her worn apron, me in a simple shirt. And when customers came in, we always offered the same thing: coffee and a story about how love can rebuild what money destroys. 2 years have passed since we opened the cafe. Sometimes, when the sun filters through the windows and the scent of coffee fills the air, I close my eyes and remember who I was, not to regret it, but to be thankful. If I hadn't fallen, I'd never have learned to live. Our cafe became a refuge for many, people not looking just for coffee but for comfort, for a sincere conversation. Lucia said every cup carried a story, and she was right. One afternoon, a man in a suit came in. He looked at me with a mix of surprise and respect. You're Alejandro Duarte, right? The businessman who lost everything. I nodded, without pride or shame. I was that man. Today I'm Alejandro, the one who serves coffee with Lucia. He smiled. I came to offer you an opportunity. Your story moved people. You could return to the business world. We could rebuild what was yours. For a moment, silence filled the room. I looked at Lucia preparing cappuccinos, laughing. I remembered sleepless nights, contracts, the emptiness disguised as power. I knew my answer. Thank you. But I've already gotten back what was mine. I don't need more. The man looked confused, but shook my hand and left. Lucia approached, curious. What did he want? To offer me my old life. She smiled. And what did you say? That I already have it. That night we closed late. It rained, like the day we met. We sat by the window, watching the drops fall. You know, she said softly, I always thought money cast a long shadow, until I saw you walk out of it. I took her hand. And I thought love was a luxury not everyone could afford, until you taught me it comes with a smile. She leaned her head on my shoulder. The silence wasn't empty. It was sacred. Minutes, maybe hours passed. Outside, the storm stopped. Inside, peace remained. Not the peace of success, but of someone who's forgiven himself. That night, I wrote a letter. Not to publish, for myself. There is no greater wealth than loving without fear, nor fortune more lasting than a peaceful conscience. I placed it in the drawer of the counter, where it still waits to remind me who I am. Now I understand happiness has a price, not paid with money, but with humility and truth. And though the world still runs after appearances, here, in this little cafe, I learned that miracles don't always fall from the sky. Sometimes they arrive wearing an apron, a smile, and holding a warm cup of coffee. People sometimes ask if I miss my old life, the parties, the luxury. And I always say, you can't miss what never filled your soul. The true luxury lies in what can't be bought, a quiet afternoon, an honest gaze, a love that asks for nothing. Lucia taught me greatness isn't measured by what you own, but by what you give when you have nothing left. She turned my downfall into hope, my pride into gratitude. And while the world chases glitter, I chose this corner where life smells like coffee and truth. Every morning, when I open the doors and hear the hum of voices, I smile, because with every cup I serve, I share part of my story, the man who lost everything to gain what truly matters. And as Lucia walks among the tables, laughing with that light that saved me, I finally understand that love is the only wealth that never ends.